Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spotlight session about The Mockers, the first web series for the young audiences from Bosnia and Herzegovina. My guest is Hana Kusutura, the actress who played one of the main roles in the series. You look great here. You're all in black on this couch.
Very different, yes. Thank you.
Hannah, you told me that the acting in The Mockers was a unique, unforgettable experience for you. Why was it so special?
Oh, we were so emotionally triggered during the process and connected with the crew on so many levels that we managed to make such a beautiful thing with a short amount of time and very little budget. And I'm so proud because we managed to deal with some topics that were not really considered important in our society, and I think they're really important because they matter to me, and I'm in that generation who is kind of forgotten, I think.
Okay, you say, when you said the topics, which topics are they? I mean, maybe let's help the people who didn't see the movie. You have four young characters with different family, religious, ethnic background, and they have one thing in common. They all want to kill their father. That's pretty tough stuff, I would say. But maybe you can tell us something about your character. Where does this wish, this radical and aggressive wish come from?
Well, my character has never seen actually her father. Her father was killed in the war and buried somewhere she does not know. And she does not want to literally kill her father. She wants to kill the idea of her father because she's missing that father figure in her life. And she feels like her life would be actually more easier if he didn't exist.
At all.
At all, yes.
And you said, like, topics, you were diving deep into very, very big, huge, important topics like war traumas, like friendship, like love, like family tragedies. Has that somehow changed the way how you perceive your world and how you look at the world where you live after the movie?
It actually has. I realized that war isn't over. I mean, we don't have guns, we don't have snipers, we don't have grenades anymore, but the Cold War is still going on. I mean, nationalism is on its peak, I think. We're all fighting constantly, and that's why The Mockers is like the perfect title for this web series, because they're mocking everybody, the system, the country, their parents, their friends, and even themselves, and they have this awful cynicism and ruthless humor, and they don't really care if they're gonna hurt someone's feelings or make somebody feel bad about their, I don't know, acts, gestures, words, anything.
How close or how far is the inner life of these characters from your life and the life of your friends? And can you understand their anger and this radical frustration, or frustration in radical form?
Yeah, I can understand the frustration because it's all the same. Like, this is a very truthful example of our youth society, and those four main characters represent like the main groups of our youth. And yeah, it's mostly because of that transgenerational trauma, but they come from very, very dysfunctional families. And not just the relationship with father is kind of missing, but the relationship with their mother is pretty bad also.
But, you know, we in all countries there are dysfunctional families, but I had impression when I saw the movie, this sort of dysfunctional families are really typical for these countries of the Balkan.
Yeah, post-war families and that transgenerational trauma. I mean, we get it whether we like it or not. It's just we need to learn how to cope with it.
There's always so much darkness, and this word "dark" and "darkness" it's like a leitmotif, and I I couldn't even stand this darkness, and imagine how is it when you live it and not watch it, and I always I ask myself, is there any way out? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
I think there is. I want to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Peace, love, understanding, toleration, and communication is actually the key. But the problem is many people listen with an intent just to give an answer, just to respond. Not many people listen to understand and solve the problem, communicate it, discuss it. And also the big problem is competition, because people compete who has the bigger trauma. Oh, I lost 5 family members. No, me 6. Basically, it's like that.
Okay, it is also the story is set. The setting for the story is a peace camp. I found it also very interesting.
Very ironical.
Very ironical, because the reconciliation and dialogue are such big words in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the whole region.
Yeah.
But nobody who came to that camp really believed in these words. They all lost their faith. Why is it?
Those kids have been listening to that, peace, dialogues, conversations, and for their whole life, basically. They don't believe in it because nothing is really getting done on that field.
Russian too.
Oops. Nothing is really getting done on that field, and I think somehow the little part of them doesn't even want to believe that. Why? Because, as you said, there's so much darkness in them, and they are dragging all of the people around them to go downhill because they can't go alone. They're living inside their bubble and they don't see outside of it. Everything is dark, everything's negative.
So Hana, we don't want to end with darkness, but we are not going to end now.
Okay.
You're going to stay with me, and we are going to talk about these topics also for another hour, but we'll have some good company.
Okay.
So let's see the next movie, small video, and then we get another guest here. So my guests on this panel are Hana Kusutura, you met her, Alexandra Dragicevic, NGO activist from Montenegro, and Kentiana Ahmeti, a journalist from Kosovo. You've probably noticed that one guest was missing. Milica Radovanovic from Kosovo decided not to come because of growing tensions in Kosovo. That's also our reality. My guests and me definitely don't belong to the same generation. I grew up in the pre-war zone, so to say, and they grew up in the post-war zone. But we have one thing in common. We were all grown up with narrative that we live in a country, in a region, which is like a powder keg that can always explode. And unfortunately, it did happen. It exploded in the 90s, and we had a war, or better say, the wars. Hana, luckily, you were, I think, the only one here born after the war.
Yeah,
but
luckily.
How did this narrative and the fact that the narrative became reality affect your life and growing up?
Well, it affected a lot, actually. I mean, over the years, I developed like a self-defense mechanism to cope with all of that, but it definitely wasn't easy. I mean, entering some regions in Bosnia was pretty unpleasant because nationalists can see by your face that you're not part of their group, and they make sure that your stay in that region is really uncomfortable, and they make you feel not so unwelcome, unfortunately.
Alex, you're a little bit older than Hana. What role has the war played in your life?
It pretty much defined of who I am today as a 35-year-old man. I grew up
I
during
didn't
the
want to
war.
be so indiscreet.
Yeah, during the 90s, these are my first memory. Bosnian war in Croatia, and then 1999, I was already a boy when the bombing and Kosovo war happened as well. My father was a part of that war as well. First, the anti-war activist. He's been taken by military police one night, and he volunteered to fight in a war in Croatia involuntarily. We haven't seen him for 2 years, and that defined a huge part of my childhood. And of course, after he returned from the war with all these stories, we grew up with these stories afterwards. And through the war in Kosovo, I started getting interested in politics. Even as a kid, you think, why is this happening? Why are the people dying? Why is there inflation? Why we don't have enough food? Why we do have to think about food every day? And then later onwards, that motivated me to enlist in the University of Political Sciences, to become a civil rights activist, to travel around the Balkans, to travel around the world to see how different people are living in the post-war zones. I've been to a lot of Northern African, Middle Eastern countries as well, did some academic research, life and so on, and yeah, pretty much defines on who I am today.
Gentiana, you were born in late 90s, but early enough to have a war in your biography. What did it do with you, and how does it affect, or how did it affect, or it still does affect your life?
Actually, everything started in the way I came in this world. I was born during the war in Kosovo in 1999. Actually, I didn't choose to be born in the place that war was happening. While my parents were telling me, instead of my first cries, they had to hear the bomb exploding outside. And in my first days of life, I used to live in mountains, in camps of refugees in North Macedonia, then to move back in Germany. And of course, I would be a German citizen, but my parents used to go back in Kosovo and live the life that Kosovo gonna give. And yeah, after war, we moved in Kosovo, and I've been raising with the narratives that what happened in Kosovo. I started understanding what war exactly was after I've been maybe 10 years old. And at that time, I've been asking my parents what really happened, when were we, while they were telling me that our house has been destroyed, I was searching for photos, as the technology wasn't good in the time. All the time I've been thinking I should have these things in my future. And this motivated me to be a journalist, to fact things and to have them for our history.
Hana, Gendiana said that she, at the age of 10, she started to understand what the war was. How did you form your picture of the war? Who influenced this picture the most? Like family, teachers, the media, the politicians?
Mainly parents, because they suffered so much loss in the war, and they had the need to explain to me what happened because of the war. I have never met my grandparents. I've never met my aunt. My father was injured and stuff, and I don't know. They felt kind of obliged to explain to me what happened, because when I was a little kid, I used to go with my parents to the graveyard and like who's this? Why are we doing this? I've never met this woman, never met this man. What the hell do they mean to me? And that's where it all started, pretty much.
Do you think it's also a kind of emotional trap that you get to know the things which happened in the history, in the past, through your family and through the feelings of your family?
Yes. I mean, I need to get to know some people that I've never seen and never will see. I need to like form a character on my own and decide what characteristics they should have.
Alex, while we were preparing this panel, you told me one sentence which doesn't get out of my mind. We are the hostages of our parents' generation. Can you explain us why?
Absolutely, and that's a thesis that I use on everyday basis. If we just look on what's been happening for the past 30 years, that we were unable to move forward, that we all live in the past and that we're the victims and the hostages of our forefathers in terms of politics, in terms of economy, we can see that not a single aspect of our lives, of the younger generation lives, of all of our lives is not affected by the war in the 90s in the Balkans. You start with the economy, we never moved forward. We destroyed it back then and now we don't have it, most of our countries. Then we have constantly growing nationalism. It's unbelievable when you look at it from the side, you think, okay, it reached its peak, but it goes above and it goes above. And you can see the political situation in the whole Balkan region is being fueled by the political elite constantly because they know that peace, stability, reconciliation is not something that can bring them political points. But in the middle of inflation or the hard life or the massive brain drain where we have with the young people that are tired of living in the toxic environment, they come out and they spark a debate. Whose fault it is, like where is going to be the next tension? We can see what's happening in Kosovo at the moment. They don't let you go forward. So we're trapped in time and we're trying. It's not that the young people are not trying, but if you look at our political elites, you can see that there's not too many young people there. Most of our politicians are 40, 50, 60 years of age. Most of the leaders of our countries are older generation of our fathers or grandfathers, and they do not let us move on. And the Balkans as a region, I can say this because I'm Yugoslav. When I go abroad, when somebody asks me, I always tell them I'm from Yugoslavia. It's much easier because my country is so small. We have a great potential. We have human potential. We have natural beauties. We have tremendous sharing history and culture, and we just need to move on. But they are holding us hostages, and our generations have to figure out how to break those chains.
Indiana, do you feel like a hostage? Do you feel like a hostage of your parents' generation?
Yes. When I decided to come in Belgrade last year and this year's, I was telling my parents and my society that we have to change. And we have to change for our life, for our peace. So our spirit needs to live in peace, not anything else. So that's the way I perceived it.
But is it the way all your friends perceive? Is it? Are you like united in such point of view and the view, or are there also differences?
I get it. When I was explaining what war is, I was afraid to speak this with my peers. Why I was afraid to speak it? Because I heard that some of my friends used to be raised with both of their parents. So I was afraid to tell what my mom did, what my father did, because I was afraid that they don't have a story to tell me if they played with their parents or things like this. So even when I come in Belgrade, I had friends that were asking me, "Are you going?" With a dot in the end of the question. I know how they feel because they have another narrative from me, so that's it.
Alex, this hostage drama doesn't take place only in the countries in our region. It migrates together with the migrants to the other parts of the world. You had experience in Australia. Can you tell us how this look like?
Absolutely. As a young person, they often tell you these common misconceptions about, for example, that the economical status or the financial status defines the level of nationalism or hate towards the other nations or even racism. Or they tell you that the education level defines it. And if you don't travel as a young person, often you think that this is really like that. So then I went and started living and working in Australia, where I met our Yugoslav communities. I met a lot of Croats and Bosniaks and Serbs and Montenegrins, and I realized they live in 90s. But not that only they're living in the 90s. 90s are there for real. I was very surprised when I realized that a lot of them do not send the kids to the same school because they fight between each other, that they have bikie gangs, like biker gangs from both Serbian or Croatian sides, where Novak Djokovic plays on Australian Open, the Croat crew takes the first row behind him so they can just boo at him, and they pay a lot of money for this. And a lot of things like that when you talk over a coffee or a beer with a normal person that are prejudice or fake news or information towards the other nation. And then you ask yourself, why? And then you realize it's because that's the home education. That's what they tell them. Their parents or their parents before them, grandparents, brought that to a new world, but they didn't stop with it. They emphasized it. They still live there. They didn't have time to spend time with these people, and they just went on and on. And now you have a whole new continent, wonderful lives, huge salaries, amazing levels of education, but you still have hate and nationalism. That's something that really owed me because I didn't believe that can exist. But yeah, that's the answer. It doesn't matter your level of salary, education, or anything like that. Emancipation is the main factor. We can talk about the emancipation a little bit later, I think.
Yes, emancipation, a little bit later. We don't have time for a lot later, but this was actually my last question, because I ask if there are some questions from the audience, because I think this is good. I also think it could be, you can also put the questions to each other. I think also it could be interesting discussion. But I always want to end, that's what I told you, Hana, with something positive, because I think the positiveness is so, so important in our life. But the question would be for all of you, what should happen to, so that you can get rid of the burden of living in the past? What should be changed? What do you need? Hana?
We should stop raising nationalists, because you're not born that way. You're taught to be one. And I think, yeah.
So who is raising, like the family or the school or the media? What do you
Mainly
who are
family,
you targeting?
I think. Mainly family.
Main family.
Yeah. I mean, media also has a role, schools have a role, but I think the family is the main point in here.
I totally agree. It will start from the family, then it will pass at the school, and everything should collaborate to bring another version.
So is there, especially in Kosovo in this very moment, it's like when we are thinking about powder keg, we must think about Kosovo. Is there anything like, what would you think, what would you need there to get things a little bit calmer?
To talk with politicians, to make a choice and bring a bright future and a great conflict. Because all this is happening because politicians don't agree with each other, and it's not from the citizens that all this comes.
Alex?
Emancipation on all levels, and it will start from the family. It will go through school, through medias, through the political elites. I'll have to say this, we have to say sorry. We have to raise, we have to give each other time to understand. We have to tell that we are ashamed of what we've done. Not that you've done more or I've done less. There's no but. We're sorry, and we need to start there. I'll give a quick example. We have to change our political elites all the time. The democratic transition will lead to reconciliation. In Montenegro, we well know and we're very sorry that we've invaded Croatia in the 90s. But for the past 17 years, in Montenegro, we couldn't see one documentary movie called War for Peace because the government didn't let us see it. Government changed 2 years ago, and this year, for the first time, broader public could see this movie, and young people seeing it, and you can see reactions to social medias, people talking out in the coffee shops that we understand it's our fault and we saw firsthand what we've done. We need more things like this everywhere in the Balkans, and we need to change political elites slowly, slowly.
So
It
this
sounds
is
so good in theory.
This is good example of what the media can do and achieve, and how can it help or does damage. Okay, do we have a question? Yes.
Hello, my name is Lazar. I'm from Serbia, and I would like to thank you for really interesting and insightful conversation. But I would really like to say a special thanks to Kentiana. I'm really glad that you came to Belgrade second year in a row, and I want to emphasize that no matter how elites, both from Belgrade and Pristina, always are making always these, I would say, fake tensions between us. I want to say that you're always welcome anywhere in Serbia and that we should visit each other more.
Bravo.
I feel happy now that because this is coming from a young boy, so thank you.
Building bridges, bravo.
So it's almost a pity to have a question after this great comment and these great words, but we do have another question, and we have time to hear it and to get it answered.
Fantastic panel, thank you. Do you have any advice for your friends and colleagues in Ukraine right now, looking ahead 20 years from now, 15 years from now, let's say, given the situation that they are in at the moment, and we are all sort of praying and hoping that there will be a peaceful conclusion. Any suggestions as young people? Thank you.
Ooh. Maybe I can start.
Yes.
I can tell my own experience right days that I'm having. I'm working on a documentary with an Ukrainian journalist that is staying in Kosovo. Together with her, we are interviewing people in Kosovo that help refugees go back in Kosovo. So with that journalist, we are making interviews and taking the thing that Kosovo did to help their people to go back. So people in Ukraine should look at their other countries' experience, how they turned back to their country and go back and build the life that they left.
That's a very tough question, but let me put it like this. I will say to everybody in Ukraine at the moment, of course, what they're going through is unimaginable. Do not let the hate consume you. Do not let hate burn your soul, because that's the way without return. Once your heart burns, it becomes all black with hate, you cannot come back. And then you will raise another generation of people that are born with hatred deep in them. They're nursed by it. We're feeling it in the Balkans 30 years after the war. We are still trying to find our way. So leave a little bit of your heart for what comes next. And next is rebuilding. Try to reconciliate afterwards. It's going to be a long process, but don't let the hate overtake it.
Do we have another question? Which would be probably the last question, because I see it's 6 o'clock. So I think that, do we have another question, Klaus? No? Okay, so I'm very happy to say that we did here all together a very, very, very Good job. When we hear your words, Alex, then we know that this is the right place to be. Brave New Media Forum 2022 came to the end, I would say. I see Klaus is coming. Does he want to come to the stage? And no, he doesn't want. He was enough on the stage. Thank you very much. I think we are all tired, but very happy, and we gained a lot of new information, knowledges, and I think we can take a lot of positive energy back home, and I think it's the most important in these days. Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you.
you next year.